Hey everybody, Brooke Sann here today, and we are talking about boundaries in a relationship with our mother-in-law, with our spouse, with our children. To survive this world, you have to have boundaries set up, okay? So we're going to talk about why we don't set up boundaries and why we let everyone walk all over us, because we do. As moms, we're really good at letting people walk all over us, and then we have this nasty cycle. We're going to talk all about that at the end. We're going to talk about what you can do to set up boundaries, but to start, I want to talk about this safety zone. Okay, so there's three categories of boundaries, if you will. So there's this let's pretend there's a little stick figure here, and they have no boundaries. This is the lone mama who doesn't have any boundaries, doesn't tell anyone, just kind of lets everybody walk all over them, and then they end up freaking out because people walk all over them and they get bitter and all that. Then we have the huge boundary, like it is such a big boundary. We call it the boundary of isolation, that no one is allowed in. It's like this giant bubble around us. And so that's why we don't go see people. We don't let people in. We don't let people come over. Like, we don't let anyone into our circle because it's scary letting people in. So that's the isolation boundary. And then we have what I call the bubble. So think of this little stick figure, and he has this perfect amount of cushion all around him. This is the bubble. This is the answer to our prayers. This is what we need. We all need a bubble in our lives. For every relationship, you need a bubble. You need to speak your truth. You need to figure out what you want, what you expect from you. This is all about you. Boundaries is not about what other people are going to do and say. It's what we're going to do. We're empowering ourselves to decide how we're going to show up when so-and-so does this, says this, acts this way. We get to decide how we're going to think and how we're going to behave. Okay? So it's not controlling other people's actions, is deciding how we're going to react to their actions, okay? So I'm going to tell you what happens when we don't have boundaries, and this might be familiar to you. When we don't have boundaries, it looks a lot like this. It looks a lot like manipulation, or trying to control other people, or even ultimatums. And it's this nasty cycle. If I could draw this cycle for you, it's the people pleasing. We start there, and then we go up to, then we get bitter and we have resentment because we're giving everyone else what they want, and then we're not giving us what we need. And then after that, it's the freak out. Like, as a mom, you must know this one. We totally lose it. We totally go crazy because we are giving everyone what they want, but then we're feeling all this resentment, and so naturally we just are going to freak out. And then we try to go back to controlling and manipulating. We're trying to get our kids and our husband and everyone around us, our mother-in-law, everyone we're trying to get them to do things. We're trying to control them because they're outside of us. And then what happens after that? We might blackmail, and then we feel all this guilt, and it's this nasty cycle. And then we go back to people pleasing because we want to make everybody happy. And it just goes and goes and goes. It's just yuck. Right? You've been there. I know you've been there. So this bubble, the bubble, is for you. It is the cushion we provide for ourselves, this nice safety cushion. It's like when we go rollerblading, we put on the knee pads, the elbow pads, the wrist guards. It's safety for us. It's not for anybody else. Okay? So this bubble gives us that self-responsibility. It's this empowerment that we are taking control over our emotions and our actions. It has nothing to do with anybody else, which is wonderful because we can't control anyone else. We try, and that's why we're crazy and miserable and freaking out as mamas. So this empowers us. So I want to lay some ground rules for boundaries, though, because it can get a little gray, I would say, and sometimes we can get a little confused. What's a boundary and what's something else? So the first ground rule I want to give you is your happiness does not depend on people fulfilling your requests, okay? So we can make requests, and an example would be like, If you raise your voice again, I am going to walk out of the room. Very simple, right? This is a very simple little, a boundary, right? If you raise your voice, I'm going to walk out of the room. That's it. So if they raise their voice and we walk out of the room, we're fine. We decide what we're going to do, and they get to do whatever. They get to yell and raise their voice. Doesn't matter. Okay? So we're not putting all of our happiness and all this angst. We're not waiting for them to make a good choice and then we're happy, right? Okay. So the second one is boundaries come from love. It promotes this self-kindness, this self-awareness of us, okay? We don't set a boundary because we're pissed off. I'm sorry to tell you that. We set a boundary because we want to love them and we don't want to feel like we have to control them to love them, right? We're not creating this manual that if you behave this way, we're going to love you, right? So we love them no matter what, right? We love our mother-in-law no matter what. We love our spouse no matter what. We love our kids no matter what, right? And then we can just speak our truth and our boundary and say, listen, if you talk about this circumstance or, if you come in and don't knock or whatever it is that your truth is, right? Whatever your boundary that you feel like you've decided ahead of time, like this is something I really want. This is something I need to feel safe, right? It's basic things, right? Like people coming over unannounced or everyone has different, you can come to my house anytime you want, but everyone has different boundaries that they need. Like there's one family member that maybe I don't want to talk to about something, right? So listen, if you bring this up, I'm going to walk away. I just don't feel comfortable talking about it, right? It's just very simple, but we love them. So we can talk to them as much as we want. We can interact with them as much as they want. But then if they cross that little line that we've set up, that boundary is like, I love you, but I'm going to walk away. That's too much for me. And there doesn't have to be any drama about it. The third one is a boundary is not an ultimatum. It is not an ultimatum. If you do this, it's like or else, right? Like if you don't behave this way, I'm done with you. Or like this one comes up a lot. Like I'm not going to give you something, right? Like we hold back from even like sex, right? Women, we can be kind of cruel like that. Like if you don't take the garbage out, I'm not going to have sex with you, right? Like no, that's not how that's a boundary violation. That's naughty. That's too far. What about if you don't feel peaceful and loving, it's not a good time to set up a boundary. Bless you, Bella. So when we're angry and mad at our kids or our husband or our mother-in-law did something crazy, that is not the time to set up a boundary. So we need to when we're in a peaceful, calm state and we're thinking with our upper brain, right? Like we are making a conscientious decision, that is a good time to set up a boundary. And if you still have a lot of angst around it and things like that, we need to kind of come back and think about it, okay? So to sum up, I want to give you this. We need to love ourselves first. Love ourselves enough to speak your truth. Love yourself, speak your truth, have your own back, right? This is the part where we follow through on this request that we've made, right? Like if you do this, if you say this, I'm going to walk away. You have to be ready to have your own back. You have to be ready to walk away. That's you taking care of you so you can love as much as you can love. It seems foreign to some of us because we think that we have to take care of everybody else around us. We have to give everybody else what they need. Like we have to be this martyr as a mom, and it's not true. To be able to rise to the highest capability and possibility of being who we are, we have to love ourselves and have our own back and speak our truth. And the last thing is love everyone so stinking deeply, right? When we do these things, when we love ourselves, when we speak our truth, when we have our own back, then we can love. Like there's no bounds. There really isn't, because we've taken care of us. We know exactly what to expect, right? We know what we're going to do. That's where anxiety comes from, right? Is because we don't know what's going to happen. We think that other people are holding on to our emotions, right? Like we think that's where anxiety comes from, is this unexpected unknown, right? Like we think that, oh, I get so anxious when so-and-so comes over because I just never know what they're going to do. Well, guess what? We got ourselves. If so-and-so brings up this topic, or so-and-so is, aggressive or whatever, and we don't know what they're going to do, we could decide what we're going to do, right? If they get a little crazy, we ask them to leave, or we leave, right? Like that's simple. Simple, simple, simple. This is where we can feel peace. This is where we can feel more love, is when we kind of set these ground rules from a place of love, and then we can do whatever the heck we want. It's very simple. That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I will see you next week. All right. Bye.